The recent debate in New York over a mosque and Islamic center built or being built near Ground Zero was heated, emotional, and revealed divisions not only in New York but apparently across the country. The New York Times reports from Murfreesboro, Tennessee to Temecula, California, there's ongoing opposition to mosques and Islamic centers being built in certain communities. The Times writes, quote, in all of the recent conflicts, opponents have said their problem is Islam itself. They quote passages from the Quran and argue that even the most Americanized Muslims secretly wants to replace the Constitution with Islamic Sharia law. Ahmed Rehab is with the Council on American-Islamic Relations, also known as CAIR. Thank you, Ahmed, for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So there are about 1,900 mosques in the United States. What are you saying, or what do you make of this debate that apparently has spread not just in New York, but as I pointed out, in other towns and communities? They don't want, according to this article, mosques in their area.
Well, you know, we're talking a lot about this phenomenon, and we're missing the real root cause of it, and that is the emergence of what I would call the organized anti-Muslim network, a succinct and organized group of bigots, anti-Muslim bigots, organizations such as the Stop the Islamization of America, or SIOA, and Act for America, or the American Congress for Truth, rather. And these organizations basically prey on the fears and the ignorance of people within the masses against Islam in order to prevent mosques from being built or Muslims from being elected or appointed into public office.
Well, Ahmed, some might counter that with saying then those moderate, if you will, Muslim Americans should be a louder voice and should be more vocal when things happen, when attacks happen, to say this is not who we are, this is not a part of our wider message, to fight the fear and the ignorance with knowledge.
Well, you know, the irony of this is that those who are being opposed, including the mosques and the elected officials, are moderate Muslims. For example, this mosque in New York is a moderate cultural center, being spearheaded by a very moderate and very well-known Imam Faisal Abdurrauf. And so these organizations are not, contrary to their false claims, opposed to terrorism and violence and extremism. They're opposed to Muslims, period, including and especially moderate Muslims, because they're afraid that Muslims would take their real place in this country as equals. They're against that. They want second-rate citizenship for these Muslims.
And
you know, they talk about...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, they talk about Muslims wanting to bring in Sharia to overtake the Constitution. The other irony in this whole thing is that in saying that and in fighting against our right to have places of worship in this country, our country, they're actually going against the very basic tenets of the American Constitution, including the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights.
Ahmed, we're going to bring in another part of this conversation. Thank you for joining us. For the other side, I'm joined now by Carl Palladino, Republican candidate for New York governor. He remains opposed to the New York mosque and Islamic center that may be built near Ground Zero. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi.
Let me get your thoughts. Here in this article in the New York Times, they're saying that not you, but some who oppose mosques being built in this country say that they believe that Muslims are trying to replace the Constitution with Sharia law. What do you make of that argument?
I think there's a lot of speculation out there right now. I think people are very wary about what they're hearing. We just heard that in Germany they closed a mosque which was teaching fundamentalist terrorism type of activity. And, you know, so people are reading these stories and they're cautious and they're upset. I think you have to take each individual case on its own merits.
Yeah, but there are 1,900 mosques, as I mentioned in my interview with Ahmed, in the United States. Do you believe most of them are for good and not this
absolutely.
So you believe that most. So then why not try to educate people as opposed to what some say preying on fear? And I say this because I want to play a new ad that you have. As I pointed out, you're running for governor. Let's play it.
Cuomo supports the construction of a $100 million Islamic mosque in the shadow of Ground Zero. Palladino says the mosque makes a mockery of those who died there.
I'm Carl Palladino. As governor, I will use the power of eminent domain to stop the mosque and use the site as a war memorial instead of a monument to those who attacked our country.
And a lot of people agree with you. We know that in the debates that are happening, but why not use the power that you have, the voice that you have, to say this is a country that supports religious freedom, that we don't.
It's not about religious freedom, though.
What is it about, then?
Unlike what that gentleman had to say there, the Imam Ralph has indicated very succinctly that he has some major problems. He came out and said that America was complicit in the 9/11 attack. He also refused to denounce Hamas. He's given us every indication that he's supporting a radical fundamentalist group that hide behind the freedom of religion argument and want to open up this affront to the memories of thousands.
Why do you believe Mayor Michael Bloomberg supported the mosque and this community center there?
I think Mayor Bloomberg is off the page. I think he's gone too far in just accepting this and calling it freedom of religion. He's just making a terrible error here, and I think he should rethink based upon the facts that we know right now.
But are you at all worried, as you pointed out, 1,900 mosques in the United States, most of them are teaching their children about their religion in a way not harmful to Americans or our values, but if you have situations in at least 3 different small communities where people flat out said they think that they're trying to replace the Constitution with Sharia law, are you at all worried that this might get out of control?
I have a lot of friends that are Muslims, and there's, I guess, 9 million in America, and for the most part, probably 99.9% of them are really good people. But it's the location of this particular mosque in New York City. It's the intent of these people to build it right there that causes the problem and wakes us up. And especially when they came out initially and they named it the Cordoba Initiative. Cordoba stands for triumph and it stands for conquest. And that you can't knock those facts. And I think Mayor Bloomberg was a little bit hasty, and so was Andrew Cuomo a little bit hasty in coming out and calling this freedom of religion. We're going to have other instances in the future where people are going to hide behind freedom of religion and other rights that they may have from our Constitution, and we have to be wary of that. And in this particular instance, they will not build that mosque there. I promise you, on January 1, 2011, I will stop it by whatever means I have legally in my resources.
Carl Palladino, thank you very much, Republican candidate for New York. Thank you, Governor. Thank you.